The Iran crisis is in the middle of evolution and evolving into something new, pretty much along the lines as I predicted last week and when it started. And today is that day of the week where we look at the performance of Pioneer Alpha, of my portfolio that is now actually becoming officially the portfolio of the Pioneer Reserve, a Luxembourg securitization vehicle. So let's take a look what the performance does, and pretty good news. It pays off to actually watch the world and make the right predictions when it comes to great crises like Iran. Same with Greenland. If you remember back in the days, I generated nice alpha by predicting to the day exactly the taco when Trump retreats from the Greenland threats. That rallied the markets, of course. We could capitalize on that. Iran was even better. Not just Iran, but also the prediction about NVDA shifting discretionary pieces of the portfolio away from Tesla into NVIDIA. That has paid off nicely on Monday. Here you see the performance up to yesterday, which is Monday. You see it up to Monday, right? We will see the performance from Monday to Friday on a Saturday video. The purpose of this exercise is always to remind everyone it's not just about nice talking and posting and YouTube videos. It's about tracking the exact performance. By the way, you can check out pioneeralpha.org. The website has now much more sophisticated portfolio tracking, and it also has a simulation of the bonds. I can't get into that because it's a securities topic, and this is an international video, so we are only covering corporate perspective here of the portfolio and the mission of Pioneer Reserve as creating the world's first stabilized high yield to everyone, to the markets, through a variety of financial products that we are not going to go into here. But you will see how we stabilize this return channel between 30% a year and 45% a year. Obviously not a guarantee. That is just the performance so far. And you see that the structure of the bond works very nicely and stays in the predetermined channel of the G45 bond that has an upper limit of 45% a year and a target limit of 30% a year. And you have the guaranteed interest bond with 30% target plus a 10% interest payment per year. That is important for you guys as stakeholders, not as investors, as stakeholders in the Pioneer Reserve, because everyone who's a member of Pioneer Lands will benefit eventually from the Pioneer Reserve, from the excess alpha we generate, because that goes straight into research of AGI, robots, all these interesting topics, of course, space AI. All the excess returns will go into research and boost all our knowledge, but of course also the returns by having more foresight of the Pioneer Reserve. Here you see a buffer structure. I will have a dedicated video going through all of this. It's a very exciting reality engineering exercise here where we engineer the financial reality of the age of AGI into a corporation that is able to transform this crazy upside, but also the crazy volatility, into a much more stabilized channel, as you see here. That is the stabilized target channel, and the performance so far of these two bonds very nicely. But at the core of these bonds, they are not guaranteed to pay anything. They are a function of the portfolio that has performed very well since we started tracking actually the bond simulation, which was September 1st of last year. We tracked the portfolio, of course, all the way back from inception, which was January 1st, 2024, up 90% in 2 years. Not bad. Let's see how we do in the future, but that's pretty good. So let's check out what this week's performance looks like. I'm very happy. We are at 1% last week. Let's do month to date. Maybe that's more interesting. That's 11 days since March 1st. The portfolio is up 1.94%, which is excellent given that this covers the entire Iran crisis. Why did we do this, or how did we do this? I go into this in a second, but first look at performance. We outperformed the S&P 500 by 3.14%. You see the alpha. So you know how it works. I talk about the performance and then the alpha. before I go into portfolio strategy, what I did so far in March, what I will do going forward in March, and how I see the things evolving. But first, performance for these first 11 days, 3.14% beating the S&P. So if you have an index fund, I just crushed you with 3.14%. I also clearly defeated so far in March the NASDAQ with 1.91%. The Dow Jones got absolutely hammered because of Iran. So we are outperforming the Dow Jones 4.47%. And let's go to our key benchmark, which is Tesla. That's where I'm especially proud of, because Tesla is our core position. Most of the portfolio is Tesla. And we outperformed Tesla 2.91%. Now here is the question, how did I do that? That was a very conscious and targeted action I took. I told you guys beginning of last week that I do not see Tesla performing too well until robotaxi launches, and at the same time I'm super bullish on AGI. Tesla is one of the main beneficiaries. Another beneficiary is of course NVIDIA. And after NVIDIA dropped like a stone, after delivering the best earnings thing I've ever heard, I decided this is crazy. In these volatile times with Iran and everything, maybe we take the discretionary part of the portfolio that normally in bullish times is Tesla, and of course it will be shifted back into Tesla once we see the slightest indication that we actually start doing unsupervised at scale robotaxis. But in the meantime, we have GTC coming up next week, probably sell the news event, but we are not at the event yet. We are still going into that event, and NVIDIA is absolutely at the most extreme bottom, in my opinion, of the Max 7s. Of course, others are also attractive. Amazon and Meta, very attractive. But NVIDIA, ridiculous. So I shifted that into NVIDIA. It was roughly 40% of the portfolio. So it's non-trivial. Of course, I created a synthetic exposure, mostly with in-the-money short puts that still give me some premium. That's my favorite tactical position type because it's most margin effective. It's a little dangerous because you quickly exceed your budget. You quickly have exposure of significantly over 100%, which I have right now, which is risky, but it's not much above 100%. So slightly leveraged, effective synthetically leveraged. But it gave us this 2.91%. And for everyone, for all of you who are dedicated Tesla investors, all in on Tesla long term, here you see why this is so important. If we generate 3% nearly in a single week over Tesla, that is all money, that is all excess returns that can go back into Tesla. So once Tesla takes off and I jump 100% or more than 100% back into Tesla, you see here what the purpose of that is. If you do this for 3 weeks at that performance, I'm not saying I can do it 3 weeks in a row to outperform Tesla 3%, but you are nearly at 10%. What does it mean? Effectively, I increased my total Tesla shares by 10%. Right? You basically, if you had 1,000 shares, bought everything at 1,000 shares, now you would have 1,100 shares. That's the magic of alpha. It generates excess returns over your benchmark. Of course, it's a little exhausting sometimes, but that is what I'm doing here. So very nicely worked out. What does MCI World do? Oh, very bad. So all these index funds, MCSI, let's face it, it's kind of an index fund. I mean, it's a mutual fund, but it's very close to an index fund. Totally crushed that thing. That is what I mean. In a single week, Pioneer Alpha crushed MSCI World with 5%. Do you know what that means? This fund normally makes you 10, 11% a year. We outperformed this thing with half of its annual performance in a single week. That's how you crush your competition, because to some extent it's competition. Let's see how MSCI performance actually performed. Just for fun, I will look at that. It's probably, I hope for it, it had like 20% returns or something in the last years. Let's see. Oh yeah, 21%. That's pretty good. Annualized 5-year 12%. But you see, over 5 years it had a 12% return. Since inception, 8.93%. So it got a little lucky. over the last year with 21%. So it takes me 4 weeks at that performance to make more than it makes in the entire year. Whatever. This is how it's going. So I'm pretty happy right now. Let's see if I can continue this week. My prediction is very simple. I think the macro situation is as follows. Let's take a look at the stocks. Let's take a look at Tesla and NVIDIA. So Tesla today has played around a little bit, peaked at 415 like crazy. It went up like crazy. This thing hit rock bottom on Monday at 383. I knew it's complete fake, so I didn't even flinch. I sold some additional short puts out of the money. Well, I think 387.5 puts when it was at 390 on Monday, because that was an obvious move in my opinion. But this is a huge swing, and you see this is the Iran crisis. If you do here 1 month, where do we have the beginning? The beginning of March was here, and then Iran dropped all the way down, then went up, then went down again, and now we are in the rate of recovery. I have to learn not to use taco. Trump always chickens out. I know a lot of you, not a lot of you, but some of you get emotionally triggered by the word. I don't mean it in a mean way. Taco is just my way of saying when Trump does something, you have to understand that there is another alternative like agenda behind what he's saying, that there is a plan, and the plan means that he's going to pivot because he's smart. And his enemies sometimes say he's chickening out. And on the surface, it looks like this. He says unconditional surrender. And of course, the US is now retreating from the war, as we will see very soon. As I said from the outset, why did I know that? Because the Iran war makes no sense for the United States unless you understand the whole game. Chinese meeting is coming up. End of March, he's going to meet Xi, and he wants all the aces up his sleeve. So the war actually makes a lot of sense, but it has nothing to do with nukes. It has nothing to do with the actual regime. This is all a bluff. He wants destabilized Iranian regime, and he wants to make clear to the Chinese that if they think they can create the petrodollar alternative with the yen, with Venezuela, with Russia, and with Iran, and with more people, Saudi Arabia, who never did that, but that would be next on the map, you can't do that. I will just brutally interfere, knock out Venezuela, and knock out your entire yen plan with Iran. This is exactly what happened. So Trump, all he needs is destabilization, undermining the Chinese on all these fronts, and keep it up all the way to beginning of April, where he makes the deal with China. So my prediction is the war is not going to end officially before his meeting, and then will fizzle out very quickly. By the way, this is not an Iran video, but you already see the pivot between Iran and US. They're starting to blame Israel, and that will be the plan that the United States will offload the war to Israel, because the Iranians are so pissed that they are not going to stop the war now. They're going to be very pissed. And the elegant way out is to say, okay, you guys take over, you fight each other a little bit, I'm out of here. And behind the scenes, there will be negotiations with Iran or agreements with Iran that Iran leaves the oil alone, leaves the GCC alone, and fights Israel a little bit. That might be a little mean and throwing Israel under the bus, but I think it's fine. They're doing it too. So it's like, that is kind of the situation. As I see it, I will have a dedicated video on that. That's my next prediction. The war will fizzle on until the China meeting. Trump will get what he wants in China, does some kind of deal, and after that, the US will fizzle out of that war, and Iran can have his revenge with Israel, and Israel has its revenge with Iran. But then no one cares anymore as long as the oil is secured and the US is not in a crazy war. In Russia, of course, plays along. They are in the loop about the whole thing. And they also Putin is not a big fan of China. He doesn't trust China more than he trusts the United States. He wants to play them both. Trump wants to play them both. They all want to play. So that's kind of the situation. And China will get a tactical loss here. And Trump will have a tactical win. That's what it is. I hope I don't sound too callous to you guys, because I know it's about people dying, civilians dying, children dying. So it's not funny at all. I'm just outlining what is happening and what will happen, because we need to know that. So that is my quick overview. What does it all mean for the markets? Let's look at the NASDAQ as our main reference point. I said to everyone, we are flatlining since September 22nd, while the Mag 7 and the AI game is going through the roof. So we had now a decoupling. If you look at the 5 years here, we have that trend line, and that trend line actually makes sense. It's fundamentally backed by an economy that's going through the roof in terms of profitability. Of course, there will be tons of unemployment. There will be big problems with people paying the bills. There won't be a big inflation problem, but a deflation problem. But a lot of people will struggle, because that's the driver of profit, that they are getting cut out of the process, and companies can do much more with less. But it means from a profit perspective, we are seeing more and more profits. So that line here, that natural line, should actually continue. And you see that here around September or October, however you count it, maybe October, there was a decoupling between reality, which goes like this here, and the market, which means we have a coiled spring situation for all the Mag 7 except Tesla. Of course, Tesla is not performing great, of course, on the fundamentals, but Tesla is in a special situation because robotaxi is coming. So Tesla is different. Tesla doesn't have an active forcing function, whereas NVIDIA has a very active forcing function. NVIDIA has to go up. It has to go up, 60% a year, 70% a year, because it grows with its profits, because it's already at the bottom. It's being driven up. Whereas Tesla is a little bit a pie in the sky situation. Tesla is not at all justified at its price on its current fundamentals. But everyone understands that robotaxi is coming, and potentially very soon. And that Optimus is coming, in my opinion, also sooner than people think. I think 2028 we will already see Optimus at scale, starting to really scale. And that means that Tesla is becoming the largest company in the world very, very soon. So with Tesla, you're just buying into a dream. But if this dream comes true, $400 for Tesla is ridiculous. It should be at 4,000, maybe 2,000. So it's all about believing the dream or not, but it's not about believing. That's why we're watching this channel here, and that's why we are doing all the research, because we understand it's much more than a dream. It's actually very, very real. The question is, when does it become real? Now, in both instances of NVIDIA and Tesla, and extending that rationale to the other 5 Mag 7 stocks, coiled spring is the right term. The market is currently held back by some macro concerns and the fake narrative of AI bubbles. That's just dumb, by the way. But the macro situation is tense with Iran. Even though we can look through it, we understand what's really going on in Iran. It's actually not out of control. It's actually potentially very much under control. And there's a taco strategy coming. Only to my Republican Trump fan friends, I'm not using taco to offend Trump. I think it's a plan. I think it's very smart. It's just not defeating Iran. And he says that. So from the outside, it looks like chickening out. It's actually a plan. So that is going to happen. And once that happens, what will happen with the market? We will see a giant rally. I am convinced at this point, giant rally is coming. I'm convinced it's coming soon in Q2, early Q2. We are perfectly set up for this. So I'm telling you guys very specific things here, because I'm making very specific trades. What I'm saying has a 90% confidence, so I'm not completely betting on it, but I'm significantly betting on it. That means an exposure. I'm over 100% exposed right now, but I'm not at 200%. I'm not that crazy. I'm waiting a little bit longer. I want to see clear movements and clear green lights. When it comes to NVIDIA, by the way, my tactic for next week is we have to expect a sell the news GTC event, and we have to expect NVIDIA rallying into this thing. So March 18th is probably the pivot point, March 17th, 18th, where I think NVIDIA could drop a little bit. But before that, I think it will continue to perform very, very well. We can look at NVIDIA just very briefly today. It's today up a tiny little bit, but it went up significantly. Look at this. That thing was at 176 on Monday, and within 2 days it's up here at 185. So I think it has more room to run. Very interesting situation, but we have to watch out for next week. So these are my tactical trades to maintain the alpha and beat all these people. Of course, on a 6 month basis, we totally destroyed everyone. That is obvious. But on a 1 month level, still, well, we are doing pretty good right now. MCSI World. And of course, if you look at things like TSLA, oh my, this thing is bad. That's the ETF leverage 2x Tesla, down 24%, and we are beating this thing with 22% year to date. So that is the situation. Check out the website. You can learn more about the strategy to build the world's first stabilized return stream from the upside of AGI into a new sort of securities infrastructure. Very good stuff that will benefit all of us, even if you're not a bondholder, because this will go straight into predicting the future and sharing it with you. So let's see what will happen. I will have more dedicated videos on the Pioneer Reserve structure for you coming soon. It's very exciting stuff. I think all of you and all of us should learn to become a little bit of more financial engineers, the engineering of financial value, the capture of economic value, turning it into dollars and euros, and then actually stabilizing the whole thing is actually a core skill of civilization in the future. Very important stuff. I know it sounds a little boring, but think about it. It's about money. Money is not boring. And we will have some more interesting news on the cyber cap coming out and on Optimus. There are lots of things happening, and we will also cover NVIDIA's latest move to copy OpenClaw and what this is all about. So stay tuned. I hope that was interesting, and see you tomorrow.